My name is Sarah Martinez, and I'm 31 years old. What I'm about to share with you will fundamentally challenge everything you believe about trust, partnership, and the extraordinary power that emerges when someone refuses to accept humiliation as their final chapter. 2 years ago, my husband left me stranded at the Phoenix DMV office with our 18-month-old son, our diaper bag, and exactly $23 in my wallet. He drove away believing he had reduced me to nothing more than another struggling single mother dependent on public transportation and government assistance. Last week, he watched in complete disbelief as my private Learjet 75 landed in the parking lot of that same DMV building, with me stepping out as the CEO of a logistics company valued at over $80 million. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The roots of my story stretch back to Denver, Colorado, where I built what I believed was an unbreakable bond with the man I thought would be my lifelong partner. I met Marcus Thompson during my final year at Colorado State University, where I was completing my degree in operations management with a focus on transportation logistics. Marcus was pursuing his MBA at the same institution, specializing in corporate strategy and business development. Our relationship began naturally through shared academic projects, study groups, and a mutual fascination with strategic problem-solving and ambitious professional goals. Marcus possessed a magnetic confidence that drew people toward him in both classroom discussions and social gatherings. He was articulate, impeccably dressed, and demonstrated an impressive ability to command attention during presentations and networking events. His background reflected privilege and opportunity. Marcus had grown up in Aspen, where his father owned a successful construction company specializing in luxury mountain resorts, while his mother managed operations for several high-end boutique hotels. Marcus spoke fluent French and German, had studied abroad in both Paris and Munich, and carried himself with the assured demeanor of someone who had never encountered significant obstacles or financial uncertainty. My own background was considerably more humble but equally determined. I was the daughter of hardworking parents from El Paso, Texas, who had built their lives through relentless dedication and sacrifice. My father, Roberto Martinez, worked as a logistics coordinator for a major shipping company while simultaneously completing his professional certifications through night school. My mother, Carmen Martinez, managed the administrative operations of a family-owned auto repair shop while raising my two younger sisters and me with an unwavering emphasis on educational achievement and personal integrity. The Martinez family philosophy centered around three fundamental principles that shaped every aspect of our household dynamics. First, education represents the most reliable pathway to economic security and social advancement. Second, persistent effort and unwavering determination could overcome virtually any obstacle if applied consistently over time. Third, family members supported each other unconditionally while maintaining the highest standards for individual achievement and moral character. These principles guided my academic development throughout high school and college. I graduated as salutatorian from my high school class, earned a partial academic scholarship to Colorado State University, and maintained a 3.9 grade point average while working 25 hours per week at a campus logistics lab to cover my living expenses. My specialization in operations management emerged from a combination of natural analytical ability and genuine fascination with the complex systems that enable modern commerce to function efficiently across vast geographic distances. During my junior year, I completed an internship with a major freight company that managed distribution networks for several Fortune 500 manufacturers. The experience revealed both the enormous complexity of modern logistics operations and the significant opportunities for optimization that existed within these systems. I became particularly interested in how emerging technologies could be leveraged to improve efficiency, reduce environmental impact, and enhance reliability across multimodal transportation networks. My senior year capstone project focused on developing predictive algorithms that could anticipate transportation bottlenecks before they occurred, enabling proactive route adjustments that could save companies millions of dollars annually in delayed shipments and expedited delivery costs. The project required extensive collaboration with industry professionals, advanced mathematical modeling, and the creation of software prototypes that could process real-time data from multiple transportation modes, including trucking, rail, air cargo, and maritime shipping. The completed research earned recognition from both university faculty and industry experts, with 3 major logistics companies expressing serious interest in licensing the analytical frameworks I had developed. Marcus and I began dating during the spring semester of my senior year when we were both selected for a prestigious business strategy competition that required teams to develop comprehensive operational plans for actual companies facing complex logistical challenges. Our team was assigned to analyze the North American expansion strategy for a European automotive parts manufacturer that was considering establishing distribution centers in multiple U.S. metropolitan areas. The project required months of intensive research, financial modeling, market analysis, and strategic planning. Marcus's expertise in corporate strategy complemented my knowledge of transportation logistics, creating a partnership that proved highly effective in both academic and personal contexts. Our team's final presentation received the highest evaluation in the competition, earning recognition from a panel of judges that included senior executives from major Denver-based corporations. The success of our collaboration in the business strategy competition revealed both our professional compatibility and our shared vision for building careers in operations and strategic consulting. Marcus's ambition was to establish himself in business development, eventually specializing in helping mid-size companies optimize their operational efficiency for rapid growth. My goal was to build expertise in transportation logistics with the long-term objective of starting a consulting firm that could help companies navigate the complexities of modern supply chain management. Our relationship developed with the kind of methodical planning that characterized our academic approaches. We discussed career timelines, geographic preferences, and the practical considerations involved in building dual professional careers while maintaining a strong personal partnership. Marcus would complete his MBA and secure a position with a major consulting firm, ideally in their operations practice. I would pursue entry-level opportunities in logistics management, gaining experience with progressively larger and more complex transportation networks. The timeline we established suggested that within 5 to 7 years, we would both have sufficient experience and professional credibility to consider entrepreneurial ventures or senior corporate positions that would provide the foundation for marriage and family planning. We approached our relationship with the same analytical rigor that we applied to business strategy, believing that careful planning and strategic decision-making would enable us to build both professional success and personal happiness. Following graduation, our plans proceeded exactly as we had outlined. Marcus secured a competitive position with McKinsey & Company in their Denver office, focusing on operational strategy for technology companies seeking to scale their operations efficiently. I joined the logistics management team at FedEx, where I was responsible for optimizing transportation routes for their ground delivery network across the Rocky Mountain region. Our respective positions provided excellent learning opportunities while offering compensation that enabled us to maintain a comfortable lifestyle in Denver. Marcus's role involved extensive travel to meet with clients and evaluate operational challenges, while my responsibilities required regular coordination with transportation partners, technology vendors, and logistics specialists across multiple time zones. Despite demanding schedules, we maintained a strong relationship characterized by mutual support for each other's career development and shared enthusiasm for our professional achievements. After 22 months of dating, Marcus proposed during a vacation to Napa Valley that we had planned to celebrate our respective promotions within our companies. The proposal was thoughtfully executed, taking place at a restaurant where we had enjoyed our first formal dinner together as a couple. Marcus presented me with an engagement ring that reflected both his financial success and his understanding of my preferences for elegant simplicity over ostentatious display. Our engagement period lasted 16 months, during which we planned a wedding that would accommodate both families while reflecting our shared values and aesthetic preferences. The ceremony took place at a boutique venue in downtown Denver, with a guest list that included family members, close friends, and several professional colleagues who had become important parts of our social network. The wedding itself was a sophisticated affair that balanced traditional elements with personal touches that reflected our individual backgrounds and shared interests. My parents contributed traditional Mexican cultural elements, while Marcus's family arranged for professional photography and catering that captured the elegance of the occasion. The reception featured cuisine that honored both cultural traditions while accommodating the diverse dietary preferences of our guests. Our early married life established patterns that seemed to validate our strategic approach to relationship building. We purchased a townhouse in a desirable Denver neighborhood that offered convenient access to both of our workplaces while providing space for entertaining and potential future family expansion. Marcus continued advancing within McKinsey, earning recognition for his analytical skills and client relationship management abilities. I received increasing responsibilities at FedEx, eventually leading a team that managed route optimization for their fastest-growing service areas. Our professional successes created opportunities for travel, both individually and together. Marcus's work required frequent trips to evaluate client operations across the western United States, while my responsibilities involved establishing partnerships with regional transportation providers. When our schedules permitted, we would coordinate travel to explore new destinations together, viewing these experiences as both personal enjoyment and professional development opportunities. After 2.5 years of marriage, we began discussing the possibility of starting a family. Our financial situation was stable, our careers were progressing according to plan, and we had established the kind of partnership that seemed well-suited to the challenges of parenthood. Marcus was particularly enthusiastic about the prospect of becoming a father, often speaking about his desire to provide his children with even greater opportunities than he had experienced during his own privileged upbringing. The decision to start a family represented a natural progression of our carefully planned life together. We approached pregnancy planning with the same strategic thinking that characterized our other major decisions, consulting with healthcare professionals, optimizing our financial preparations, and discussing how we would balance parenting responsibilities with our career commitments. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now back to where we left off. When I became pregnant during our 3rd year of marriage, both families responded with tremendous excitement and support. Marcus's parents immediately began discussing their plans for grandparent involvement, while my parents expressed their joy through increased attention to traditional customs associated with pregnancy and childbirth. The prospect of welcoming our first child seemed to strengthen our relationship, while providing additional motivation for continued professional achievement. My pregnancy proceeded smoothly, with Marcus demonstrating remarkable attentiveness and support throughout the experience. He accompanied me to every medical appointment, researched optimal nutrition and exercise approaches, and took primary responsibility for preparing our home environment for the baby's arrival. His enthusiasm for fatherhood was evident in his careful selection of baby furniture, his detailed research into child development principles, and his frequent discussions about the educational opportunities we would provide for our child. During the final trimester of my pregnancy, Marcus's behavior began to shift in ways that I initially attributed to normal anxiety about becoming a first-time parent. He seemed more stressed about work deadlines, more concerned about our financial obligations, and occasionally distant during conversations about our future plans. When I asked about his increased anxiety, he would explain that he was feeling additional pressure to advance his career before the baby arrived, wanting to ensure that he could provide adequately for our expanding family. These explanations seemed reasonable given the magnitude of the life changes we were approaching. Our son Ethan was born in early September after a labor and delivery process that proceeded without complications. Marcus was present throughout the birth, demonstrating the same supportive attention that had characterized his approach throughout my pregnancy. His emotional response to meeting his son was profound, with tears of joy and expressions of love that seemed to confirm his commitment to being an engaged and devoted father. The first few weeks of parenthood presented the typical challenges of sleep deprivation, feeding schedules, and adjustment to dramatically altered daily routines. Marcus took 3 weeks of paternity leave from McKinsey, during which he shared responsibility for nighttime feedings, diaper changes, and household maintenance tasks. His involvement during this period reinforced my confidence in our partnership and our ability to successfully navigate the demands of parenthood while maintaining our professional commitments. However, as Marcus's paternity leave concluded and he returned to his demanding work schedule, subtle changes in his behavior became more pronounced. He seemed increasingly impatient with the disruptions that a newborn inevitably creates in household routines. He would express frustration when Ethan's crying interrupted his phone calls or when feeding schedules conflicted with his work commitments. While these reactions were not entirely unreasonable given the adjustments required by new parenthood, the frequency and intensity of his irritation suggested deeper concerns about how our changed circumstances were affecting his lifestyle and career priorities. My adjustment to motherhood was proceeding more smoothly than I had anticipated. While the physical demands of caring for an infant were certainly challenging, I found myself adapting naturally to the rhythms of feeding, sleeping, and nurturing that Ethan required. FedEx had provided generous maternity leave benefits, allowing me to focus entirely on recovery and early bonding without immediate pressure to return to work responsibilities. However, Marcus's return to his demanding consulting schedule revealed concerns about changes in his approach to our family dynamic. His participation in Ethan's daily care became increasingly minimal and reluctant. When Ethan cried during the night, Marcus would remain in bed while I handled the feeding and comfort routines. When I requested his assistance with specific care tasks during weekend mornings, he would comply with obvious reluctance and frequent comments about his need for adequate rest to maintain his professional performance. His previously enthusiastic discussions about Ethan's development and milestone achievements became perfunctory responses that seemed designed to end conversations rather than engage with the substance of our son's progress. This withdrawal from active parenting was particularly puzzling, because Marcus had previously spoken with genuine excitement about his role as a father and his desire to be actively involved in Ethan's upbringing. During my pregnancy, he had researched child development principles, purchased educational toys and books, and frequently discussed his plans for teaching Ethan various skills as he grew older. The contrast between his pre-birth enthusiasm and his post-return disengagement suggested either a fundamental misunderstanding of what parenting would actually require, or a deliberate decision to minimize his involvement in our son's daily care. The second significant change involved Marcus's attitude toward our shared financial responsibilities and household management. Throughout our marriage, we had maintained a collaborative approach to budgeting, major purchases, and long-term financial planning. Marcus's higher income from McKinsey meant that he contributed a larger percentage of our household expenses, but we had always made financial decisions through joint discussion and mutual agreement about spending priorities and saving objectives. After his return to work, Marcus began expressing concerns about our financial situation that seemed disproportionate to our actual circumstances. He would question routine purchases like groceries and household supplies, suggesting that we needed to reduce expenses in preparation for the increased costs associated with raising a child. When I pointed out that we had prepared financially for Ethan's arrival and that our budget accommodated the additional expenses he would create, Marcus would respond with vague references to economic uncertainty and the importance of maintaining larger cash reserves. These conversations were particularly confusing because our financial situation had actually improved since Ethan's birth. Marcus had received a substantial performance bonus from McKinsey in recognition of his successful completion of several major client engagements. My maternity leave was fully paid, meaning that our household income had not decreased during the period when our expenses were highest. Our savings account contained more than sufficient reserves to cover any unexpected costs related to Ethan's care or medical needs. Marcus's sudden concern about money seemed to reflect either a dramatic change in his risk tolerance or considerations that he was not sharing with me. When I attempted to discuss specific aspects of our budget that might benefit from adjustment, he would deflect the conversation or claim that his concerns were based on confidential information about economic conditions that he could not discuss due to his professional obligations. The third area where changes became apparent involved Marcus's work schedule and his availability for family activities. Throughout our marriage, Marcus had maintained demanding professional hours, but he had also made consistent efforts to protect time for our relationship and shared interests. Weekends typically included activities we both enjoyed, such as hiking in the Rocky Mountains, visiting art galleries, or exploring new restaurants in Denver's evolving culinary scene. Marcus would also arrange his travel schedule to minimize conflicts with important personal events or activities we had planned together. Following his return from paternity leave, Marcus's work commitments seemed to expand significantly. He began leaving for the office earlier in the morning and returning later in the evening. Weekend work became more frequent, with Marcus claiming that his current client projects required extensive analysis and strategic development that could not be completed during normal business hours. When I suggested that we plan activities together as a family, he would express concern about his workload and suggest that we postpone plans until his current projects were completed. The expansion of Marcus's work schedule coincided with his increased use of his personal phone for what he described as client communications. Previously, Marcus had handled most of his professional calls through his office phone or company-issued mobile device. However, he now frequently received calls on his personal phone that required him to step outside or move to another room for privacy. When I inquired about the nature of these calls, Marcus would explain that they involved sensitive client information that required confidential handling. While Marcus's explanations about increased work demands and confidential communications seemed plausible individually, the cumulative effect of these changes created a pattern of reduced availability and emotional distance that had not previously characterized our relationship. The man who had once prioritized our shared time and actively participated in household responsibilities was becoming increasingly absent and disengaged from the daily reality of our life together. During Ethan's 12th week of life, Marcus announced that McKinsey was sending him to evaluate a potential operational restructuring project that would require him to spend 10 days in various locations throughout Arizona and Nevada. The assignment would involve visiting client facilities in Phoenix, Tucson, Las Vegas, and Reno to assess their current operational efficiency and develop recommendations for improvement. The scope and duration of this assignment exceeded any business travel Marcus had previously undertaken during our marriage. When I expressed concern about managing Ethan's care alone for 10 days while still adjusting to the demands of motherhood, Marcus's response revealed the extent to which his priorities had shifted away from our family's needs. "This is a critical career opportunity that could significantly advance my position within the firm," Marcus explained. "The client specifically requested my involvement because of my track record with operational optimization projects. I cannot turn down this kind of assignment without damaging my professional reputation and limiting my future advancement opportunities." His characterization of the trip as a career opportunity that he could not decline suggested that his professional advancement had become more important than his responsibilities as a new father. The man who had once balanced work demands with family commitments was now presenting those responsibilities as mutually exclusive choices where work would consistently take priority. The night before Marcus's departure, his behavior was particularly distant and preoccupied. When I attempted to discuss logistics for his trip and our communication schedule while he was away, his responses were terse and seemed to reflect more stress than the situation warranted. I attributed his demeanor to work pressure and the natural difficulty of leaving his newborn son for the first time. What I did not realize was that Marcus's Arizona trip would become the catalyst for discoveries that would completely shatter my understanding of our marriage, our future, and his true character. Marcus's departure for Arizona marked the beginning of a period that would test my capabilities as a mother, while revealing the extent of deceptions that had been developing beneath the surface of our relationship. The first few days of managing Ethan's care independently actually proceeded more smoothly than I had anticipated. Without the tension created by Marcus's reluctant participation and frequent expressions of frustration, our household atmosphere became more peaceful. Ethan seemed to respond positively to the consistency of having a single caregiver who was fully present and emotionally available. His sleep patterns improved, his feeding became more regular, and his general temperament seems calmer than it had been during the previous weeks. The experience of successful solo parenting provided concrete evidence that I possessed the skills and resilience necessary to care for my son effectively, regardless of Marcus's level of participation. This growing confidence would prove crucial for the challenges that lay ahead. During the first 3 days of Marcus's absence, our communication followed patterns we had established during his previous business trips. He would call each evening to discuss his work progress and inquire about Ethan's daily activities. These conversations were cordial but notably brief, typically lasting no more than 10 minutes before Marcus would explain that he needed to attend client dinners or complete preparation work for the following day's meetings. The brevity and superficiality of these conversations represented a significant departure from our normal communication patterns. During previous separations, when Marcus had traveled for business, our phone conversations would often extend for 30 minutes or more, covering everything from detailed work developments to personal observations about the cities he was visiting. We would share thoughts about current events, discuss articles we were reading, and maintain the kind of intellectual connection that had been central to our relationship since our university days. The current conversations lacked this depth of engagement and personal connection. Marcus's inquiries about Ethan seemed perfunctory rather than genuinely interested, and his responses to my updates about our son's development were polite but emotionally flat. When I attempted to extend our conversations by sharing observations about Ethan's emerging personality traits or amusing incidents from our daily routines, Marcus would acknowledge my comments briefly before redirecting the conversation toward practical matters or explaining his need to conclude the call. During the 4th day of Marcus's trip, the frequency and quality of our communication deteriorated further. Phone calls became irregular, sometimes occurring very late in the evening or not at all on certain days. When we did speak, Marcus seemed distracted and impatient, often claiming that client demands were requiring him to work exceptionally long hours that left little time for personal communication. The explanations Marcus provided for his reduced availability began to include inconsistencies that raised questions about the accuracy of his descriptions of his work activities. On one occasion, He mentioned attending a client dinner that would prevent him from calling until very late, but when he did call later that evening, background noise suggested he was in a casual environment rather than a business setting. When I asked about the client dinner, Marcus's description of the event was vague and seemed to contradict details he had mentioned earlier about the nature of his meetings. Another inconsistency emerged when Marcus described his travel schedule within Arizona and Nevada. He had initially explained that the operational assessment would require him to visit multiple client facilities sequentially, spending several days in each location to conduct comprehensive efficiency analysis. However, his daily updates suggested that he was spending more time in Phoenix than his original itinerary had indicated, while his visits to other cities appeared to be much briefer than the thorough operational review he had described would require. When I asked for clarification about these apparent changes to his schedule, Marcus's responses were evasive and defensive. He would claim that client needs had required modifications to his original plans, or that the complexity of the operational assessment had necessitated more extensive work in certain locations. However, his explanations lacked the specific details about business processes and analytical requirements that typically characterized his descriptions of complex consulting projects. The most significant inconsistency involved Marcus's descriptions of his work team and client interactions. Throughout his career at McKinsey, Marcus had consistently provided detailed accounts of his colleagues' contributions to major projects and his collaborative relationships with client representatives. These descriptions had always included specific names, professional backgrounds, and insights about the dynamics that influence successful project outcomes. During his Arizona trip, Marcus's references to team members and clients became notably generic and impersonal. He would mention meetings with the project team or client representatives without providing the specific details that had always characterized his previous accounts of complex business relationships. When I asked about particular individuals he had mentioned in earlier conversations, Marcus would claim that confidentiality requirements prevented him from discussing specific people involved in the engagement. This explanation was particularly puzzling, because Marcus had never previously cited confidentiality concerns as a barrier to sharing general information about his professional interactions. While he had always been appropriately discreet about sensitive financial details and strategic information, he had regularly discussed the professional qualifications and working styles of colleagues and clients in ways that provided context for his work challenges without compromising confidential information. By the end of the first week of Marcus's absence, the pattern of inconsistencies and evasiveness in his communication had created growing unease about the truthfulness of his explanations for his extended absence. However, my suspicions remained focused on the possibility that his work situation might be more stressful or complicated than he was willing to admit, rather than on the potential for fundamental deception about the nature of his activities. The discovery of the truth would require investigation that would reveal not only the extent of Marcus's betrayal, but also capabilities within myself that I had never previously recognized. The analytical skills and determination that would uncover his deception would prove to be the same qualities that would eventually enable me to build extraordinary success from the devastation he was about to create. During the second week of Marcus's absence, I decided to conduct some independent research to better understand the operational consulting project he was supposedly managing. My background in logistics and operations management had provided me with familiarity with industry databases and business intelligence resources that could offer insights into major consulting engagements occurring within specific sectors and geographic regions. Using my professional access to business analysis platforms through my FedEx account, I searched for information about significant operational restructuring projects involving McKinsey clients in the southwestern United States during the timeframe of Marcus's trip. The search parameters I established were comprehensive enough to capture various types of consulting engagements, while specific enough to identify projects that might require the level of extensive on-site presence that Marcus had described. The results of this research were both troubling and illuminating. While McKinsey was indeed involved in several operational projects throughout Arizona and Nevada during this period, none of the publicly available information suggested restructuring assessments that would require the extended multi-city presence that Marcus had described. Most of the engagements appeared to involve strategic planning or technology implementation projects that would typically be managed through McKinsey's regional offices, rather than requiring extended travel to multiple client locations. More concerning was the absence of any operational restructuring opportunities that matched the scope and complexity that Marcus had described when explaining the importance of his assignment. The projects I could identify through business intelligence sources appeared to be either smaller engagements that would not require senior consultant involvement or larger initiatives that were being managed by different McKinsey practice areas with different staffing requirements. This research raised the possibility that Marcus's descriptions of his Arizona assignment had been deliberately misleading or entirely fabricated. However, I recognized that my access to information about McKinsey's activities was limited and that confidential aspects of major consulting engagements might not be reflected in publicly available business intelligence sources. The apparent inconsistencies could potentially be explained by the sensitive nature of early-stage consulting discussions that had not yet been disclosed through normal business reporting channels. Despite these rational explanations for the discrepancies I had discovered, the combination of Marcus's changed communication patterns and the lack of corroborating evidence for his described work activities created sufficient concern to warrant additional investigation. I decided to contact Marcus's assistant at McKinsey to verify basic details about his travel schedule and expected return date. The conversation with his assistant, Jennifer Walsh, provided information that significantly heightened my suspicions about Marcus's truthfulness regarding his Arizona activities. When I called to confirm Marcus's expected return date so that I could plan airport transportation, Jennifer's response indicated confusion about the nature and duration of his current assignment. "I don't have Marcus scheduled for any extended travel this week," Jennifer said when I explained the purpose of my call. "His calendar shows several local client meetings here in Denver, but nothing that would require overnight travel. Are you sure about the dates of his Arizona trip?" This response was shocking and completely inconsistent with Marcus's detailed descriptions of his 10-day operational assessment assignment. I attempted to clarify the situation by providing the specific dates and locations that Marcus had mentioned, but Jennifer confirmed that her records showed no extended travel arrangements during that time frame. "Let me double-check with Sarah Chen, who manages Marcus's current project assignments," Jennifer offered. Apparently recognizing my confusion and concern, after a brief hold, she returned with information that further contradicted Marcus's explanations. "I spoke with Sarah, who manages Marcus's current consulting engagements," Jennifer reported. "She confirms that Marcus is not involved in any Arizona operational assessments during this period. His current focus is on a technology strategy analysis for a Denver-based client that is being conducted entirely from our local office. I'm not sure where the confusion about Arizona travel might have originated. The discovery that Marcus's extended absence was not related to any legitimate McKinsey business assignment represented a devastating blow to my trust in his honesty and created urgent questions about his actual activities during the previous week. If Marcus was not in Arizona for work purposes, then his daily phone calls and detailed descriptions of client meetings and operational assessments had been elaborate fabrications designed to conceal his true activities and location. The implications of this deception extended far beyond simple dishonesty about travel plans. Marcus's willingness to construct and maintain such sophisticated lies suggested a level of calculation and premeditation that was incompatible with any innocent explanation for his behavior. Following my conversation with Jennifer, I attempted to reach Marcus by phone to confront him with the contradictory information I had discovered. However, my calls went directly to voicemail, and Marcus did not respond to my messages requesting an immediate callback to discuss an urgent family matter. This lack of responsiveness was particularly troubling given that Marcus had consistently maintained availability for important communications during previous business trips. Over the following 24 hours, I made multiple attempts to contact Marcus through phone calls, text messages, and emails. Each attempt went unanswered, creating a communication blackout that had never occurred during any previous separation. Marcus's complete unavailability was inconsistent with his claimed work activities and suggested that he was deliberately avoiding contact rather than being occupied with legitimate business responsibilities. During this period of failed communication attempts, I began conducting more extensive research into Marcus's activities and whereabouts using various digital investigation techniques that my analytical training had prepared me to employ effectively. Using the location sharing features we had previously established on our mobile phones, I discovered that Marcus's phone was indeed in the Phoenix area, consistent with his claimed travel location. However, the specific locations indicated by his phone's GPS data did not correspond to business districts or commercial areas where corporate consulting meetings would typically occur. Instead, Marcus's location data suggested that he was spending significant time in residential neighborhoods and entertainment districts that would be more appropriate for personal activities than business meetings. The pattern of his movements throughout each day indicated a lifestyle of leisure and social activities rather than the intensive consulting work he had described during our phone conversations. The most disturbing discovery emerged when I employed social media research techniques to investigate Marcus's activities more thoroughly. Although Marcus was not particularly active on social media platforms, I was able to search for references to his presence in Phoenix through mutual connections and location-based posts that might provide additional information about his activities. This research revealed photographic evidence that contradicted every aspect of Marcus's explanations for his Arizona trip. Multiple social media posts from other individuals showed Marcus participating in recreational activities, dining at upscale restaurants and attending entertainment events in the company of people I did not recognize. Most significantly, several photographs clearly showed Marcus in the company of a woman who appeared frequently across multiple posts and social settings. The woman in these photographs was consistently positioned in ways that suggested an intimate relationship rather than a professional or casual social connection. In several images, she and Marcus were holding hands, embracing, or displaying other forms of physical affection that were unmistakably romantic in nature. The frequency of her appearance across different social events and the comfortable familiarity evident in their interactions indicated a relationship that had clearly been developing over an extended period. The discovery of photographic evidence documenting Marcus's romantic involvement with another woman during his supposed business trip represented a complete betrayal of our marriage vows and a devastating confirmation that his recent behavioral changes had been motivated by his pursuit of an extramarital relationship. The elaborate lies about work travel had been constructed to provide cover for an affair that appeared to be far more than a casual indiscretion. The sophistication of Marcus's deception suggested that his affair had been ongoing for a considerable period, likely predating Ethan's birth and possibly extending back months into my pregnancy. His recent withdrawal from family responsibilities and his reduced emotional availability now appeared to be deliberate strategies for creating distance that would facilitate his pursuit of this other relationship while maintaining the appearance of committed marriage. The realization that Marcus had been conducting an affair throughout some of the most vulnerable and important periods of my life, including Ethan's birth and my recovery from childbirth, created a combination of rage, grief, and determination that I had never previously experienced. The man I had trusted with our future and our son's welfare had been systematically betraying us while accepting our love, support, and financial partnership. However, alongside the emotional devastation of discovering Marcus's infidelity, I experienced a growing sense of clarity about my situation and my options. The strength I had demonstrated during his absence, my successful management of Ethan's care, and my ability to uncover the truth about his deception provided evidence that I possessed the skills and resilience necessary to build an independent life for myself and my son. The investigation that had revealed Marcus's betrayal had also demonstrated my capacity for strategic thinking, thorough research, and decisive action under pressure. These were precisely the qualities that would be essential for navigating the challenges ahead and creating opportunities for success beyond anything Marcus and I had planned together. The analytical skills I had employed to uncover his deception could be applied to business development and strategic planning. The determination I had shown in pursuing the truth despite emotional stress indicated resilience that could be leveraged for professional advancement. The attention to detail and systematic approach I had taken to evidence gathering would be valuable for managing complex logistics projects and client relationships. As I processed the full implications of Marcus's betrayal, I began to recognize that his deception had inadvertently provided me with opportunities for growth and independence that I might never have pursued within the comfortable but limiting framework of our marriage. The consulting expertise I had developed at FedEx, combined with the analytical capabilities I was discovering within myself, represented valuable assets that could be leveraged for entrepreneurial success. The transportation logistics industry was experiencing rapid transformation due to emerging technologies and changing customer expectations. Companies across various sectors were seeking strategic guidance for optimizing their distribution networks, reducing operational costs, and improving customer satisfaction through more efficient delivery systems. My specialized knowledge in these areas, combined with my proven ability to solve complex problems under pressure, positioned me well for independent consulting opportunities that could provide both professional fulfillment and financial security. During the final days of Marcus's supposed business trip, I began developing preliminary strategies for confronting him with the evidence I had gathered while simultaneously preparing for the possibility that his betrayal might represent an opportunity for transformation rather than simply devastation. The photographic evidence of his affair and the systematic deception regarding his business activities had provided devastating clarity about the true nature of our marriage, but they had also revealed possibilities for independence and success that I was only beginning to imagine. The woman who would eventually build a multi-million-dollar logistics empire was beginning to emerge from the crisis that Marcus's betrayal had created, though neither of us could yet envision the extraordinary transformation that was about to unfold. The 3 days before Marcus's scheduled return from Arizona became a period of intensive strategic planning and emotional preparation that would prove crucial to my ability to navigate the confrontation that lay ahead. The photographic evidence of his affair and the systematic deception regarding his business activities had provided devastating clarity about the true nature of our marriage, but they had also revealed opportunities for action that I might not have recognized without this comprehensive understanding of his betrayal. My first priority involved gathering and organizing all available evidence of Marcus's infidelity and dishonesty in a manner that would be both legally useful and personally empowering. The social media photographs, location data, and contradictory information from his office represented just the beginning of what could be a comprehensive documentation of his deceptive behavior. My background in analytical research and data management provided a systematic approach to evidence collection that would prove invaluable in the coming weeks. I created a detailed timeline that correlated Marcus's claimed activities with the actual evidence of his whereabouts and companions. This analysis revealed that virtually every aspect of his supposed Arizona consulting project had been fabricated, from the initial client meetings to the daily work activities he had described during our phone conversations. The sophistication of his deception indicated planning that extended far beyond a spontaneous extramarital encounter, suggesting instead a deliberate strategy to maintain our marriage while pursuing an alternative relationship. The timeline analysis also revealed patterns in Marcus's behavior that provided insights into the duration and development of his affair. By correlating his recent changes in work schedule, communication patterns, and emotional availability with the photographic evidence of his activities in Phoenix, I could trace the evolution of his relationship with this other woman back at least 4 months, potentially extending into the period of my pregnancy with Ethan. This extended timeline of deception was particularly devastating because it indicated that Marcus had been systematically lying to me during some of the most vulnerable and important periods of my life. His apparent commitment to our marriage during my pregnancy and his enthusiastic participation in preparing for Ethan's birth had been performance rather than genuine engagement. However, alongside the emotional impact of understanding the scope of Marcus's betrayal, the evidence I had gathered provided substantial advantages for the difficult conversations and decisions that lay ahead. The comprehensive documentation of his dishonesty would prevent him from attempting to minimize his actions or shift responsibility for the failure of our marriage. My second priority involved developing a strategic approach to the confrontation with Marcus that would protect both my emotional well-being and my practical interests. The anger and grief I felt about his betrayal were natural and justified responses to his actions, but allowing these emotions to dominate our interaction could compromise my ability to make sound decisions about my future and Ethan's welfare. I spent considerable time analyzing various approaches I could take when Marcus returned, evaluating each option based on its likely effectiveness in achieving my objectives while preserving my dignity and protecting my long-term interests. After careful consideration, I decided to pursue an approach that would combine strategic disclosure with clear boundaries about acceptable behavior. I would confront Marcus with sufficient evidence to make denial impossible, but I would also use the conversation to gather additional information about his intentions and his level of commitment to maintaining our marriage. My third priority involved making practical preparations for the possibility that my confrontation with Marcus would result in immediate separation or demands for divorce. While I hoped that our conversation might lead to honest discussion about the problems in our marriage, the evidence of his systematic deception suggested that such an outcome was unlikely. I consulted with a family law attorney to understand my rights and options regarding child custody, spousal support, and property division in the event that Marcus chose to pursue divorce rather than attempt to repair our marriage. These consultations provided crucial information about the legal framework that would govern our separation and helped me understand which types of evidence would be most valuable in protecting Ethan's interests and my own financial security. The attorney emphasized the importance of documenting Marcus's income, our shared assets, and any evidence of his spending on extramarital activities that could be relevant to financial settlements. She also explained that Colorado's equitable distribution laws would provide substantial protection for my interests, but that the specific terms of any agreement would depend heavily on the quality of evidence I could provide. I also made practical preparations for managing Ethan's care and my own living situation in various scenarios that might emerge from my confrontation with Marcus. While our townhouse provided adequate space for our current family configuration, the possibility of separation raised questions about whether this arrangement would continue to be feasible or desirable for Ethan and me. Marcus's return to Denver occurred precisely according to his original schedule, with his flight arriving at Denver International Airport at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday evening in late October. I had spent the day implementing final preparations for our confrontation while maintaining normal routines with Ethan to preserve my emotional equilibrium. When Marcus entered our townhouse at approximately 6:45 p.m., his behavior immediately confirmed that he had no awareness of my knowledge regarding his deceptive activities during the previous 10 days. He greeted me with casual affection, inquired about Ethan's well-being with apparent genuine interest, and began unpacking his luggage while providing what appeared to be spontaneous commentary about his supposed business activities in Arizona. The operational assessment turned out to be even more complex than we initially anticipated, Marcus explained as he sorted through clothing that showed no evidence of intensive consulting work. The client's distribution network had inefficiencies that required extensive analysis of their transportation partnerships, which is actually quite similar to the work you do at FedEx. I found myself wishing I could have consulted with you on some of the logistics challenges we identified. This reference to transportation logistics was particularly galling because it demonstrated his willingness to incorporate details from my professional expertise into his deceptive narrative. The casual manner in which he constructed lies that connected to my own work experience revealed a level of manipulation that extended beyond simple infidelity into systematic psychological deception. I allowed Marcus to continue his fabricated account of his Arizona activities while I observed his behavior for additional insights into his deceptive capabilities and his assessment of my likely responses to his explanations. His confidence in delivering false information suggested either complete certainty that his deception had been effective or a disturbing comfort level with sustained dishonesty in our most intimate relationship. After Marcus had completed his initial narrative about the business trip and had settled into what appeared to be a relaxed evening routine, I introduced the topic that would expose the complete scope of his betrayal. "Marcus, I need to discuss something important with you about your trip to Arizona," I began, maintaining steady eye contact while keeping my voice calm and controlled. "I encountered some confusing information while you were away, and I would like to give you an opportunity to clarify the situation before I draw any conclusions about what might have occurred." Marcus's initial response was one of polite curiosity mixed with slight concern, suggesting that he interpreted my comment as a reference to minor inconsistencies rather than fundamental deception. "Of course, Sarah. What kind of confusing information? I hope there weren't any problems with my travel arrangements or communication while I was working." His willingness to maintain his deceptive narrative even when presented with a clear opportunity to acknowledge problems demonstrated the depth of his commitment to concealing his actual activities. I proceeded to present the evidence I had gathered in a logical sequence that would make denial increasingly difficult while providing multiple opportunities for Marcus to acknowledge his deception and accept responsibility for his actions. "When I called your office to confirm your return date, Jennifer informed me that you were not scheduled for any extended travel during this period," I explained, watching carefully for his reaction. "She also mentioned that your current project assignments are focused on technology strategy analysis being conducted entirely from the Denver office. Could you help me understand how this information might be reconciled with your descriptions of the Arizona operational assessment?" Marcus's response demonstrated both his continued commitment to deception and his skill at constructing plausible explanations for contradictory evidence. Rather than acknowledging any inconsistency, he immediately developed an alternative narrative. "That's a misunderstanding that probably resulted from confidentiality requirements surrounding the client engagement," Marcus explained with apparent confidence. "Jennifer wouldn't have access to information about special assignments that involve sensitive operational restructuring. The Arizona project is being managed through a separate reporting structure that maintains strict confidentiality until the engagement reaches a more advanced stage." I continued with the second element of evidence, which involved the location data that contradicted his descriptions of business activities and meeting locations. I also noticed some inconsistencies in the location information from your phone during the trip. I continued. The GPS data suggested that you were spending considerable time in residential and entertainment areas rather than business districts where corporate meetings would typically occur. Additionally, your movement patterns appeared more consistent with leisure activities than with the intensive consulting work you described. Marcus's response showed the first signs of defensive reaction, though he continued attempting to provide explanations that would preserve his deceptive narrative. The client preferred to conduct some of our discussions in informal settings rather than traditional office environments, Marcus replied, though his voice carried less conviction than his previous explanations. Many of the operational assessment meetings took place in locations where the client executives felt more comfortable discussing sensitive information about their business challenges. At this point, I made the decision to present the photographic evidence that would make continued denial impossible. I opened my laptop and displayed the first photograph, which showed Marcus and an unknown woman embracing while walking along a resort pool in Scottsdale. Marcus, I need you to explain this photograph and help me understand how it relates to your operational consulting activities, I said, turning the laptop screen toward him while maintaining direct eye contact. The change in Marcus's demeanor upon seeing the photograph was immediate and profound. The confident composure he had maintained throughout the earlier portions of our conversation disappeared entirely, replaced by obvious shock and the recognition that his elaborate deceptive strategy had been completely exposed. For several moments he stared at the screen without speaking, apparently processing the implications of my possession of this evidence. When Marcus finally responded, his approach shifted dramatically from attempted explanation to damage control. "Sarah, I can see that you have discovered information about my relationship with Rebecca," Marcus said, using the name of his affair partner for the first time in our conversation. "I want you to know that this situation developed in ways that I never intended, and that my feelings for you and Ethan have not changed despite the mistakes I have made." I proceeded to display additional photographs that documented the extent and duration of Marcus's relationship with Rebecca, including images from multiple social events, romantic dinners, and vacation activities that had occurred during various periods when he had claimed to be engaged in work-related travel. These photographs span a period of at least 5 months, including times when I was pregnant with Ethan and during the weeks following his birth, I observed. "Your relationship with Rebecca appears to have been ongoing throughout some of the most important milestones in our family's development." Marcus's response revealed both his recognition that denial was no longer possible and his complete lack of genuine accountability for the harm his actions had caused. Rather than expressing remorse for the betrayal or acknowledging the impact of his deception on my well-being and Ethan's security, he immediately began attempting to negotiate the terms of how we would address the situation going forward. The confrontation continued for several hours, during which additional revelations emerged that would fundamentally alter my understanding of both Marcus's character and the opportunities that lay ahead for building an independent future. As our confrontation extended into the early hours of Saturday morning, Marcus revealed layers of deception that went far beyond the affair itself. Under pressure from the undeniable evidence I had presented, he began admitting to financial manipulations and strategic planning that exposed a systematic campaign to position himself for abandoning our family while protecting his own interests. The first shocking revelation emerged when I pressed Marcus about unexplained withdrawals from our joint savings account that I had noticed while reviewing our financial records during his absence. Initially, he claimed these withdrawals were related to unexpected consulting expenses that would be reimbursed by McKinsey. However, when I presented him with bank statements showing a pattern of systematic transfers totaling over $28,000 during the past 4 months, his explanations became increasingly desperate and contradictory. "Sarah, I can explain those transfers," Marcus said, his voice taking on a pleading tone I had never heard before. "I've been setting aside money for a surprise investment opportunity that I wanted to present to you when the details were finalized. It's a real estate development project in Colorado Springs that could provide significant returns for our family's future." When I challenged him to provide documentation or contacts related to this supposed investment opportunity, Marcus's facade finally crumbled completely. The truth that emerged was far more devastating than simple financial irresponsibility. "The money is in an account in Phoenix," he admitted, unable to maintain eye contact. "Rebecca and I have been looking at properties there. I know how this sounds, but I was trying to establish some financial security before making any major decisions about our future." The revelation that Marcus had been systematically stealing from our family's savings to finance his relationship with Rebecca represented a level of betrayal that went beyond emotional infidelity into deliberate financial sabotage. The money he had diverted included funds we had specifically allocated for Ethan's college education and emergency reserves that were meant to protect our family during unexpected crises. But Marcus's admissions didn't stop there. Under continued questioning, he revealed that his relationship with Rebecca had begun during a McKinsey training conference in Phoenix 8 months earlier, meaning his affair had been ongoing throughout my entire pregnancy with Ethan. It started as just conversations during conference breaks, Marcus explained, as if the gradual development of his betrayal made it somehow less devastating. Rebecca works in operations consulting for a competing firm. We discovered we had similar professional interests and perspectives on business strategy. The casual way Marcus described the evolution of his affair, as if it were a natural business relationship that had simply developed beyond professional boundaries, demonstrated his complete inability to comprehend the moral and emotional dimensions of what he had done to our family. More disturbing still was his revelation that he and Rebecca had been discussing the possibility of relocating to Phoenix permanently, where she had been offered a senior position with a major consulting firm. Marcus had apparently been conducting secret job interviews with Phoenix-based companies for the past 2 months, using fabricated business trips as cover for exploring career opportunities that would enable him to start a new life with Rebecca. "I haven't accepted any offers yet," Marcus said, as if this restraint demonstrated consideration for our family's interests. "I wanted to wait until I could figure out the best way to handle the transition that would be least disruptive for everyone involved." His language carefully avoided direct acknowledgement that he was planning to abandon Ethan and me, instead framing his betrayal as a transition that he was managing responsibly. This self-serving characterization of his systematic deception revealed a profound disconnect from reality and a complete absence of genuine remorse for the harm he was causing. The most devastating revelation came when Marcus admitted that he had been deliberately undermining my professional relationships at FedEx in preparation for his departure. During my pregnancy, he had contacted my supervisor to express concerns about my ability to manage both career responsibilities and motherhood effectively, suggesting that reduced work commitments would be beneficial for our family's well-being. "I thought I was protecting you from unnecessary stress," Marcus claimed when confronted with this sabotage. "The demands of your job combined with the challenges of new motherhood seemed like they would be overwhelming for anyone to handle effectively." However, his real motivation became clear when he admitted that he had also been discouraging my supervisor from offering me advancement opportunities or high-profile projects that might increase my independence and earning potential. Marcus's interference in my career development had been motivated not by concern for my well-being, but by his desire to ensure that I would be financially vulnerable and unable to support Ethan independently when he chose to abandon our marriage. The discovery of Marcus's career sabotage was particularly devastating because it revealed the calculated nature of his betrayal. He hadn't simply fallen in love with another woman and made impulsive decisions that harmed our family. Instead, he had been systematically preparing to leave us in a position where I would be forced to accept whatever custody and financial arrangements he chose to offer. As the full scope of Marcus's deception became clear, I experienced a profound shift in my emotional response to the crisis. The initial shock and grief began to transform into a focused determination that surprised me with its intensity. The analytical skills I had employed to uncover his betrayal, combined with the evidence of systematic planning he had revealed, provided insights into strategic thinking that I realized could be leveraged for my own advancement. During a brief pause in our confrontation, while Marcus was making coffee in an apparent attempt to normalize the situation, I received an unexpected phone call that would significantly influence the direction of my life. My former colleague at FedEx, Janet Rodriguez, called to inform me about a consulting opportunity that had emerged while I was on maternity leave. "Sarah, I know your leave isn't scheduled to end for another month, but I wanted to give you advance notice about something that could be incredible for your career," Janet explained. Transglobal Logistics is looking for an independent consultant to optimize their distribution networks across the southwestern United States. They specifically requested someone with your expertise in cross-modal transportation analysis. The consulting opportunity represented far more than simply a source of income during a potentially difficult period of separation and divorce proceedings. Transglobal Logistics was one of the largest freight management companies in the region, with operations spanning from California to Texas and extending into Mexico. The scope of their optimization project would involve analyzing transportation networks that moved billions of dollars worth of goods annually. The project timeline is ambitious, Janet continued. They want a comprehensive analysis of their current operations completed within 6 months, followed by implementation support that could extend the engagement for up to 2 years. The compensation they're offering is significantly higher than typical consulting rates because they need someone who can deliver results quickly. The financial terms of the consulting arrangement were indeed exceptional. The base consulting fee for the 6-month analysis phase would generate more income than my annual salary at FedEx, while the potential implementation phase could provide financial security that would make me completely independent of Marcus's support. More importantly, the Trans-Global project represented an opportunity to work with cutting-edge logistics technologies and strategic planning methodologies that could position me as a leading expert in transportation optimization. The client relationships and industry knowledge I would develop through this engagement could serve as the foundation for building my own consulting practice. There's one more thing, Janet added. Transglobal's CEO, Patricia Williams, specifically mentioned that if the project goes well, they might be interested in discussing acquisition opportunities for any consulting firm that demonstrates exceptional capabilities in their specialized areas. This final detail transformed the consulting opportunity from a temporary source of income into a potential pathway toward building a business that could be worth millions of dollars. The transportation logistics industry was experiencing rapid consolidation, with major companies acquiring specialized consulting firms to expand their strategic capabilities. I accepted the consulting engagement immediately, explaining that I would be available to begin work within 2 weeks of my maternity leave conclusion. This timeline would provide sufficient opportunity to resolve the immediate crisis in my marriage, while ensuring that I had concrete plans for professional and financial independence regardless of the outcome of my confrontation with Marcus. When I returned to our conversation, Marcus was attempting to regain control of the situation by proposing various arrangements that would allow him to maintain his relationship with Rebecca while preserving some connection to Ethan and me. His suggestions included geographic separations that would enable him to pursue his Phoenix opportunities while maintaining the appearance of our marriage, and financial agreements that would protect his interests while limiting my access to marital assets. I think we can work out an arrangement that serves everyone's interests, Marcus said, adopting the tone he typically used for business negotiations. I could take the position in Phoenix while maintaining a residence here in Denver. That would allow me to provide financial support for you and Ethan while pursuing the career opportunities that could benefit our entire family in the long term. His proposal revealed a complete misunderstanding of the situation and his role in creating it. Marcus genuinely seemed to believe that his systematic betrayal could be resolved through logistical arrangements that would accommodate his preferences while expecting me to accept a subordinate role in managing the consequences of his choices. Marcus, I said, my voice carrying a clarity and strength that surprised both of us, you seem to misunderstand something fundamental about our situation. You have spent months systematically deceiving me, stealing from our family's savings, sabotaging my career, and planning to abandon your son. This is not a negotiation about arrangements that serve everyone's interests. This is the end of our marriage. The directness of my statement appeared to shock Marcus more than any of the evidence I had presented earlier. Throughout our confrontation, he had maintained the assumption that our relationship could be preserved through some form of compromise or accommodation. The recognition that his betrayal had consequences that extended beyond temporary relationship difficulties seemed to be an entirely new concept for him. Sarah, you're understandably upset about the mistakes I've made, but I don't think you're considering the practical implications of ending our marriage, Marcus replied, revealing his continued focus on protecting his own interests. Divorce proceedings would be expensive and emotionally difficult for everyone involved, especially Ethan. Surely we can find a solution that allows us to move forward in a way that protects our son's welfare while acknowledging the changes that have occurred in our relationship. His characterization of systematic deception, financial theft, and affair as mistakes and changes that have occurred demonstrated his complete inability to accept responsibility for the deliberate choices he had made. More revealing was his immediate concern about the expense and difficulty of divorce proceedings, suggesting that his primary worry involved protecting his financial interests rather than genuinely considering Ethan's welfare. The contrast between Marcus's self-serving approach to managing the crisis and my growing clarity about the opportunities that lay ahead crystallized my understanding of the transformation that was beginning to occur. The consulting project with TransGlobal would provide not only financial independence, but also professional validation and network development that could lead to extraordinary success. The evidence of Marcus's betrayal had revealed capabilities within myself that I had never fully recognized. Analytical thinking under pressure, systematic investigation skills, strategic planning abilities, and emotional resilience that could withstand devastating personal crises while maintaining focus on long-term objectives. As our confrontation concluded in the early hours of Saturday morning, Marcus announced his intention to travel to Phoenix the following week to finalize some arrangements with Rebecca and to determine the best path forward for everyone involved. His language continued to avoid direct acknowledgement that he was choosing to abandon our family, but his intentions were unmistakably clear. The devastating revelation of Marcus's comprehensive betrayal had provided the clarity I needed to move forward with confidence in my decision to build an independent life for Ethan and myself. The man I had trusted with our future had revealed himself to be fundamentally unworthy of that trust, but his betrayal had also liberated me to pursue opportunities that would ultimately prove far more valuable than anything we could have achieved together. The week following my confrontation with Marcus became a whirlwind of strategic planning, legal preparation, and emotional reckoning that would establish the foundation for everything that followed. Marcus's behavior during this period revealed the final depths of his selfishness while simultaneously providing me with the motivation and clarity necessary to pursue opportunities that would exceed my most ambitious dreams. Marcus spent the first 3 days after our confrontation alternating between attempts to minimize his betrayal and expressions of irritation about what he characterized as my overreaction to a situation that he believed could be managed through practical arrangements. His complete inability to comprehend the moral and emotional dimensions of his systematic deception became increasingly apparent as he focused entirely on logistics and financial considerations. "Sarah, I understand that you're hurt about Rebecca, but I don't think you're being realistic about the practical implications of this situation," Marcus said during one particularly revealing conversation. "We have significant shared assets, a young child, and professional reputations to consider. Surely we can approach this like mature adults and develop a solution that protects everyone's interests." His characterization of his affair, financial theft, and career sabotage as issues that could be resolved through mature negotiation demonstrated a fundamental disconnect from reality that made any possibility of reconciliation impossible. More disturbing was his assumption that I would be willing to participate in arrangements that prioritized his comfort and convenience over our son's welfare and my own dignity. During this same period, I was conducting intensive preparation for the consulting engagement with TransGlobal Logistics that would serve as the launching pad for my independent career. The scope and complexity of their optimization project required comprehensive research into their current operations, competitive analysis of the southwestern logistics market, and strategic planning for the analytical methodologies I would employ to identify improvement opportunities. TransGlobal Logistics operated one of the most sophisticated multimodal transportation networks in North America, with integrated trucking, rail, and air cargo capabilities that moved everything from automotive parts to agricultural products across vast geographic territories. Their distribution centers in Phoenix, Denver, Dallas, Los Angeles, and Albuquerque handled millions of shipments annually, generating over $2.8 billion in revenue while serving more than 15,000 corporate clients. However, their rapid growth through acquisitions and geographic expansion had created operational inefficiencies that were costing the company an estimated $180 million annually in unnecessary transportation expenses, delayed deliveries, and inventory management problems. The consulting project would require me to analyze these complex systems, identify specific optimization opportunities, and develop implementation strategies that could generate substantial cost savings while improving customer satisfaction. My research into TransGlobal's operations revealed that their challenges were representative of broader trends affecting the entire logistics industry. Companies across various sectors were struggling to integrate legacy transportation systems with emerging technologies, optimize routes for changing customer delivery expectations, and manage the environmental impact of increasing freight volumes. These industry-wide challenges represented opportunities for consultants who could develop innovative solutions that addressed multiple operational concerns simultaneously. The expertise I would gain through the TransGlobal project could position me to serve clients throughout the logistics sector, potentially leading to the development of a specialized consulting practice that could command premium rates for solving complex transportation problems. During my preparation phase, I also began developing relationships with technology vendors, transportation specialists, and logistics experts who could provide crucial support for the analytical work I would be conducting. These professional connections would prove invaluable not only for delivering exceptional results on the trans-global project, but also for building the network of industry relationships that would support my long-term business development objectives. On Thursday of that week, Marcus announced that he would be traveling to Phoenix the following Monday to finalize his employment arrangements and to establish a more permanent living situation with Rebecca. His language continued to avoid direct acknowledgement that he was abandoning our family, instead framing his departure as a career move that would ultimately benefit everyone involved. The position I've been offered in Phoenix represents a significant advancement opportunity that could increase my earning potential by 40%, Marcus explained, as if his professional advancement justified his betrayal and abandonment. The additional income would enable me to provide better financial support for you and Ethan while establishing myself in a market that offers greater long-term career prospects. His focus on the financial benefits of his Phoenix relocation revealed his continued assumption that monetary considerations could somehow compensate for his systematic deception and abandonment of his responsibilities as a husband and father. The suggestion that his affair-motivated career change would benefit everyone involved demonstrated a level of self-delusion that was both fascinating and infuriating. More concerning was Marcus's announcement that he would need to temporarily reduce his financial contributions to our household expenses while he established himself in Phoenix. Despite having stolen $28,000 from our joint savings, and despite claiming that his new position would increase his income substantially, he was already positioning himself to minimize his financial obligations to Ethan and me. The initial months in Phoenix will involve significant relocation expenses, and the need to maintain housing in both cities until we can finalize our long-term arrangements, Marcus said, employing the same euphemistic language he had been using throughout the week to avoid acknowledging the reality of his choices. The day before Marcus's scheduled departure for Phoenix, an incident occurred that would crystallize my understanding of his character and provide the final motivation I needed to pursue success that would shock him with its magnitude. We had agreed that he would take Ethan to the Phoenix DMV office to update his driver's license with our new address, since Marcus claimed he would be maintaining a Colorado residence while transitioning to his Phoenix position. The DMV visit was necessary because Marcus's current license was about to expire, and he needed to establish Arizona residency documentation for his new employment. He had suggested that we make the trip together as a family, presenting it as an opportunity for him to spend quality time with Ethan before beginning his work schedule in Phoenix. However, the real purpose of Marcus's invitation became clear during our drive to the DMV office. Rather than focusing on our son or discussing practical arrangements for maintaining his relationship with Ethan during his Phoenix assignment, Marcus spent the entire journey making phone calls to Rebecca and discussing details of their apartment hunting and social plans. Rebecca found a great place in Scottsdale that would be perfect for both of us, Marcus said during one of these calls, speaking as if I were not sitting in the passenger seat with our 18-month-old son in the back seat. The complex has a pool and fitness center, and it's close enough to both of our offices that we could easily coordinate our schedules. His casual discussion of establishing a domestic partnership with Rebecca while sitting next to his wife and child revealed a level of insensitivity and self-absorption that exceeded even my worst expectations of his character. When we arrived at the Phoenix DMV office, Marcus's behavior became even more revealing. Rather than treating the visit as a family activity or an opportunity to spend time with Ethan, he seemed impatient with the administrative requirements and frustrated by the typical delays associated with government services. "This is taking much longer than I expected," Marcus complained after we had been waiting for 30 minutes. "I have a meeting with Rebecca at 3 p.m. to finalize the apartment lease, and I can't afford to be late for something that important." His prioritization of apartment arrangements with his affair partner over spending time with his son during what he claimed would be a temporary separation provided devastating insight into his actual priorities and values. The defining moment occurred when Marcus received a phone call from Rebecca while we were still in line at the DMV. After speaking with her briefly, he announced that she needed him to meet her immediately at the apartment complex to sign lease documents before the rental office closed. "Sarah, I need to leave right now to handle this apartment situation," Marcus said, already gathering his documents and preparing to depart. "You can finish the license renewal process without me, and I'll catch an Uber to meet Rebecca." When I pointed out that he was the one who needed the license renewal, and that leaving would require us to start the entire process over again another day, Marcus's response revealed the complete extent of his selfishness and irresponsibility. "The license renewal isn't really urgent, since I'll be spending most of my time in Phoenix anyway," he said dismissively. "You and Ethan can take the bus back home, and I'll deal with the DMV paperwork when it's more convenient for my schedule." The realization that Marcus was prepared to abandon me at the DMV office with our toddler, our diaper bag, and no transportation arrangements while he rushed off to sign an apartment lease with his affair partner marked the absolute lowest point of his betrayal. His assumption that I would simply accept this abandonment and manage the logistics of getting home with Ethan demonstrated his complete disregard for our welfare and his total focus on his own convenience. As Marcus walked out of the DMV office without a backward glance, leaving me standing in line with Ethan and trying to process the magnitude of his callousness, I experienced a moment of absolute clarity about our situation and my future. The man who was supposed to protect and support our family had revealed himself to be not only untrustworthy but actively harmful to our well-being. However, alongside the shock and humiliation of being abandoned at a government office with my toddler, I felt a surge of determination and focus that surprised me with its intensity. The analytical skills and strategic thinking I had developed during my investigation of Marcus's deception, combined with the consulting opportunity that awaited me, represented resources that could be leveraged for building extraordinary success. Standing in that DMV office, holding Ethan while watching Marcus disappear into an Uber headed toward his new life with Rebecca, I made a commitment to myself and my son that I would drive everything that followed. I would not only survive Marcus's abandonment and betrayal, but I would transform this devastating experience into the foundation for achievements that would exceed anything he could imagine. The consulting project with Transglobal Logistics would serve as the first step toward building a logistics consulting empire that would eventually make me one of the most successful women in the transportation industry. The skills, knowledge, and professional relationships I would develop through that initial engagement would lead to opportunities for strategic partnerships, business acquisitions, and technological innovations that would revolutionize freight management across multiple sectors. As I managed to arrange transportation home through a ride-sharing service while keeping Ethan entertained during our wait, I began developing the mental framework that would guide my professional development over the coming months. The experience of being abandoned and forced to solve problems independently while caring for my son was providing concrete evidence of my resilience and capability under pressure. These were precisely the qualities that would be essential for building a successful consulting practice and eventually expanding into the kind of comprehensive logistics empire that could generate hundreds of millions of dollars in value. The determination and strategic thinking that Marcus's betrayal had forced me to develop would prove to be far more valuable than anything our marriage could have provided. By the time our ride arrived to take us home from the DMV office, I was no longer simply a woman who had been abandoned by her husband. I was an entrepreneur in the early stages of building what would become one of the most successful logistics consulting firms in North America, with capabilities and ambitions that would eventually shock Marcus when he witnessed the full extent of what I had accomplished independently. The foundation for extraordinary success had been established through the most devastating betrayal of my life, setting the stage for a transformation that would culminate in my arrival at that same DMV office in a private jet that represented achievements beyond anything Marcus could comprehend. The 18 months following Marcus's abandonment at the DMV office became a period of relentless professional development, strategic business building, and personal growth that would exceed every expectation I had ever held for my own capabilities. The consulting engagement with Transglobal Logistics served as the launching pad for achievements that transformed me from an abandoned wife into one of the most influential figures in the North American transportation industry. The Transglobal project began just 3 weeks after Marcus's departure for Phoenix, and the complexity of their operational challenges provided an ideal laboratory for developing the analytical methodologies and strategic frameworks that would become the foundation of my consulting practice. Their distribution network included over 200 transportation routes, 85 warehouse facilities, and coordination requirements with more than 300 freight carriers across 12 states. My initial analysis revealed inefficiencies that were costing Transglobal approximately $47 million annually in unnecessary transportation expenses alone. However, the optimization opportunities extended far beyond simple cost reduction to encompass inventory management improvements, customer service enhancements, and technology integration possibilities that could generate additional revenue streams worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The breakthrough insight that established my reputation in the logistics industry emerged during my analysis of Transglobal's cross-docking operations in their Phoenix distribution center. By applying advanced algorithms to their freight consolidation processes, I identified a methodology for reducing handling time by 35% while simultaneously improving delivery accuracy and reducing damage rates. The Phoenix optimization success attracted attention from logistics executives throughout the southwestern United States, leading to consulting inquiries from companies that had previously relied on much larger consulting firms for their strategic planning needs. Word spread quickly through industry networks that a brilliant independent consultant was delivering exceptional results at competitive rates, while providing the kind of personalized attention that large firms couldn't match. Within 6 months of beginning the Trans-Global project, I had established Martinez Logistics Solutions as a formal consulting practice with 5 additional clients and annual revenue that exceeded my previous FedEx salary by more than 300%. The demand for my services was growing so rapidly that I began considering the possibility of hiring additional consultants to help manage client relationships and project delivery. However, the real transformation in my business occurred when Patricia Williams, Trans-Global's CEO, approached me with a proposition that would change the trajectory of my entire career. After witnessing the dramatic improvements in their operational efficiency and cost structure, she offered to provide seed funding for expanding Martinez Logistics Solutions into a comprehensive transportation optimization firm. "Sarah, what you've accomplished with our Phoenix operations has generated more value for Trans-Global than any consulting engagement we've ever undertaken," Patricia explained during our meeting in her Denver office. "I want to discuss the possibility of Trans-Global becoming an equity partner in your consulting practice with the objective of scaling your capabilities to serve clients throughout North America." The partnership proposal involved a $12 million investment that would enable me to establish offices in major logistics hubs across the continent, hire specialized consultants with expertise in different transportation modes, and develop proprietary software solutions that could be licensed to clients for ongoing optimization management. In exchange for their investment, Trans-Global would receive a 35% equity stake in Martinez Logistics Solutions, while maintaining exclusive access to my firm's most advanced analytical capabilities for their own operations. The partnership would also include provisions for Trans-Global to acquire additional equity or potentially purchase the entire firm within 5 years, depending on performance milestones and mutual agreement. The financial terms of Patricia's proposal were extraordinary, but the strategic implications were even more significant. With Trans-Global's industry relationships and my proven analytical capabilities, we could capture market share from established consulting firms while pioneering new approaches to logistics optimization that could revolutionize the entire industry. I accepted Patricia's partnership offer with modifications that protected my control over the firm's strategic direction while providing Trans-Global with the return on investment they required. The revised agreement established Martinez Logistics Solutions as an independent entity with $12 million in startup capital, exclusive consulting arrangements with Trans-Global's network of industry partners, and a clear pathway toward becoming one of the dominant forces in transportation consulting. The rapid expansion that followed the Trans-Global partnership exceeded even our most optimistic projections. Within 12 months, Martinez Logistics Solutions had grown to include 35 specialized consultants working from offices in Phoenix, Denver, Dallas, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Atlanta. Our client roster included Fortune 500 manufacturers, regional transportation companies, and emerging e-commerce businesses that needed sophisticated distribution strategies for competing in rapidly evolving markets. The proprietary software platform that we developed for route optimization and inventory management became so valuable that technology companies began approaching us with acquisition offers for licensing rights. Rather than selling our technological assets, I made the strategic decision to establish Martinez Tech Solutions as a separate division that could generate recurring revenue through software licensing while supporting the consulting practice with cutting-edge analytical tools. By the end of my first year as an independent entrepreneur, Martinez Logistics Solutions had generated over $28 million in revenue while establishing strategic partnerships with transportation providers, technology vendors, and logistics specialists throughout North America. The firm's success had attracted attention from private equity investors, who were interested in providing additional capital for accelerated expansion into international markets. However, the most significant opportunity emerged when Global Freight Dynamics, one of the largest transportation companies in North America, approached me about acquiring Martinez Logistics Solutions for $185 million. The acquisition proposal would have provided immediate financial security beyond anything I had imagined possible. but it would also have required me to surrender control over the firm I had built from nothing. Instead of accepting Global Freight Dynamics' acquisition offer, I negotiated a strategic partnership that provided them with exclusive access to our consulting services for their North American operations, while preserving our independence to serve other clients and pursue additional growth opportunities. The partnership included a $45 million strategic investment that valued Martinez Logistics Solutions at over $200 million while maintaining my majority ownership and operational control. The success of our consulting practice and technology development had created opportunities for expanding into freight brokerage, warehouse management, and transportation equipment leasing. Rather than limiting ourselves to consulting services, I began developing plans for Martinez Transportation Group, a comprehensive logistics company that could provide end-to-end solutions for clients ranging from small regional businesses to multinational corporations. Throughout this period of extraordinary professional growth, I had maintained complete focus on providing exceptional care for Ethan while building the kind of financial security that would enable him to pursue any educational or career opportunities that interested him. The success of Martinez Logistics Solutions had generated personal wealth that exceeded $75 million, creating possibilities for generational financial security that Marcus could never have provided through his consulting career. Meanwhile, Marcus's relocation to Phoenix had proceeded according to his expectations. He had secured a senior position with a regional consulting firm, established a domestic partnership with Rebecca, and apparently convinced himself that his abandonment of our family had been a reasonable decision that served everyone's interests. However, his professional advancement in Phoenix had been limited by his reputation for unreliability and poor judgment that had followed him from Denver. Several former McKinsey colleagues had shared information about his personal conduct and questionable decision-making with their professional networks, limiting his opportunities for advancement and reducing his earning potential significantly below what he had projected. More significantly, Marcus's relationship with Rebecca had proven to be less stable than the foundation he had destroyed with our family. After 14 months of cohabitation in Phoenix, Rebecca had accepted a consulting position in San Francisco and relocated without Marcus, leaving him with apartment lease obligations and the recognition that his systematic betrayal of our marriage had not led to the personal fulfillment he had anticipated. The culmination of my transformation occurred on a Tuesday afternoon in late September, exactly 2 years after Marcus had abandoned me at the Phoenix DMV office. I was returning from a client meeting in Los Angeles aboard the Learjet 75 that Martinez Transportation Group had purchased for executive travel, when my pilot informed me that our scheduled landing at Sky Harbor Airport had been redirected due to air traffic control requirements. Miss Martinez, we're being directed to use the emergency landing area near the DMV facility on 35th Avenue, Captain Morrison explained. There's a temporary flight restriction affecting our normal route to the executive terminal, but we should only be delayed by about 20 minutes before we can taxi to our final destination. The irony of landing at the same location where Marcus had abandoned me was not lost on me, but I was completely unprepared for what happened next. As our Learjet touched down in the parking area adjacent to the DMV building, I noticed a familiar figure standing near the building entrance, apparently waiting for someone to pick him up. Marcus was standing exactly where he had left me 2 years earlier, but his circumstances had clearly changed dramatically. Instead of the confident, well-dressed consultant who had walked away from our family, he appeared stressed, tired, and significantly less prosperous than the successful professional he had portrayed himself to be. As our aircraft came to a stop and the boarding stairs were lowered, Marcus's attention was drawn to the unexpected arrival of a private jet in the DMV parking area. I watched through the aircraft window as his expression changed from mild curiosity to complete shock when he recognized me stepping out of the aircraft in a tailored business suit, followed by my assistant and 2 senior consultants from Martinez Transportation Group. The recognition that the woman he had abandoned at this same location had not only survived his betrayal but had achieved extraordinary success was written across his face in a combination of disbelief, regret, and what appeared to be genuine awe. The private jet, the professional entourage, and my confident demeanor provided unmistakable evidence that his assumptions about my inability to succeed independently had been completely wrong. I approached Marcus with the same analytical composure that had enabled me to build a logistics empire from the devastation he had created. Our conversation was brief but provided the closure I had never realized I needed. "Hello, Marcus," I said, maintaining the professional tone I would use with any former business associate. "I hope you're doing well in Phoenix." His response revealed both his recognition of the magnitude of his mistakes and his continued inability to comprehend the full implications of his choices. "Sarah, I had no idea you were— How did you?" he stammered, apparently struggling to reconcile the successful businesswoman standing before him with his memories of the overwhelmed wife and mother he had abandoned. "I discovered that adversity can be an excellent teacher," I replied. "The skills I developed while investigating your deception and managing the challenges you created turned out to be quite valuable in the logistics consulting industry." The brief encounter provided Marcus with undeniable evidence that his systematic betrayal had not destroyed me as he had apparently expected. Instead, his abandonment had liberated me to pursue achievements that exceeded anything we could have accomplished together, creating success that surpassed his most optimistic projections for his own career. As I returned to the aircraft for our continuation to Sky Harbor Airport, Marcus remained standing in the same spot where he had abandoned me, apparently processing the implications of what he had witnessed. The woman who had been forced to arrange transportation home with a toddler after his betrayal had returned as the CEO of a company worth over $200 million, arriving in her own private jet at the exact location where his callousness had reached its peak. The extraordinary transformation that began with his abandonment at the DMV office had culminated in a moment of vindication that exceeded every fantasy of success I had entertained during the darkest periods of rebuilding my life. The man who had believed he was reducing me to helpless dependence had inadvertently provided the motivation and clarity necessary for achievements that would establish me as one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the North American transportation industry. The foundation of trust and partnership that Marcus had destroyed through his systematic deception had been replaced by something far more valuable: absolute confidence in my own capabilities and the knowledge that extraordinary success was possible regardless of the obstacles or betrayals that others might create. The ruins of our marriage had become the launching pad for achievements that neither of us could have imagined when we stood together in that same DMV office 2 years earlier, but with circumstances that revealed the true character of the people we had become. As I settled back into the aircraft for our departure to Sky Harbor Airport, my assistant Jennifer Davis briefed me on the agenda for the remainder of the week. Martinez Transportation Group was finalizing negotiations for acquiring 2 smaller logistics firms in Texas and Florida, deals that would expand our operations into the Gulf Coast shipping markets and position us for capturing a significant share of international trade flowing through Houston and Miami ports. The Houston acquisition should close by Friday, Jennifer reported while reviewing documents on her tablet. Their specialized chemical transportation expertise will complement our existing capabilities perfectly, and their client relationships with major petrochemical companies could generate an additional $40 million in annual revenue within the first year. The Florida acquisition was even more strategically significant, as it included established relationships with cruise lines and international shipping companies that could provide entry points into Caribbean and South American markets. The combined value of both acquisitions totaled $67 million, representing investments that would increase Martinez Transportation Group's total valuation to over $300 million by the end of the fiscal year. These expansion opportunities had emerged because of our reputation for delivering exceptional results while maintaining the kind of personalized service that large corporations often struggled to provide. Our client retention rate exceeded 95%, and our ability to generate measurable cost savings and efficiency improvements had created word-of-mouth referrals that kept our business development pipeline consistently full. More importantly, the success of Martinez Transportation Group had created opportunities for me to mentor other women entrepreneurs who were building businesses in male-dominated industries. I had established the Martinez Foundation for Women in Logistics, which provided both financial support and strategic guidance for female-owned businesses seeking to compete in transportation, supply chain management, and related sectors. The Foundation's scholarship program had already provided educational support for 120 women pursuing degrees in logistics, operations management, and transportation engineering. Additionally, our business incubator program has helped launch 18 successful companies founded by women, creating over 400 jobs while generating more than $85 million in combined annual revenue. Through the Foundation's work, I had discovered that my experience of transforming betrayal and abandonment into extraordinary success resonated with many other women who were facing their own challenges in business and personal relationships. Speaking engagements at universities, industry conferences, and women's leadership events had become a regular part of my schedule, providing opportunities to share the strategic thinking and resilience techniques that had enabled my transformation. These speaking opportunities had also led to a book contract with a major publisher for sharing my story and the business principles that had guided Martinez Transportation Group's rapid growth. From abandoned to ascendant, building business success from personal betrayal was scheduled for publication the following spring, with advance orders already exceeding 50,000 copies based on early promotional activities. The book project had required me to analyze and articulate the specific strategies and mindset shifts that had enabled my transformation from devastated wife to successful entrepreneur. This reflective process had revealed that Marcus's betrayal, while personally devastating, had actually provided me with advantages that I might never have developed within the comfortable constraints of our marriage. His systematic deception had forced me to develop investigative skills, strategic thinking capabilities, and emotional resilience that proved essential for entrepreneurial success. The necessity of supporting Ethan independently had provided motivation and focus that might have been absent if I had remained financially dependent on Marcus's income. Most significantly, the experience of having my trust completely shattered had taught me to rely on my own judgment and capabilities rather than accepting limitations that others might attempt to impose. This self-reliance had been crucial for making the bold strategic decisions that enabled Martinez Transportation Group to capture market opportunities that more cautious entrepreneurs might have avoided. As our aircraft approached Sky Harbor Airport, I reflected on the schedule that awaited me during the remainder of the week in Phoenix. Beyond the acquisition meetings and client consultations, I had arranged to visit Ethan at his private school in Scottsdale, where he was excelling academically while participating in advanced programs for gifted children. The financial success of Martinez Transportation Group had enabled me to provide Ethan with educational opportunities that exceeded anything Marcus and I could have afforded during our marriage. His enrollment at Phoenix Country Day School included access to advanced mathematics and science programs, foreign language instruction, and extracurricular activities that were developing his natural talents while preparing him for future academic challenges. More importantly, Ethan was growing up with a clear understanding that personal setbacks could be transformed into opportunities for growth and achievement. He had witnessed my transformation from the devastated woman Marcus had abandoned to the confident entrepreneur who had built a logistics empire, providing him with first-hand evidence that resilience and determination could overcome any obstacle. The contrast between Ethan's current educational and social opportunities and the uncertainty he would have faced if I had remained dependent on Marcus's sporadic support was striking. Instead of worrying about custody arrangements and financial instability, he was thriving in an environment that encouraged his intellectual curiosity while providing the security that comes from knowing his mother had created genuine financial independence. During my visit to his school, Ethan proudly showed me the robotics project he was developing for the state science fair, a sophisticated automated system for optimizing warehouse inventory management. His choice of project topic reflected both his natural analytical abilities and his growing understanding of the logistics industry that had provided our family's prosperity. "Mom, I've been thinking about maybe studying supply chain engineering in college," Ethan said as we examined his project. "I want to understand how you built Martinez Transportation Group, and maybe I could help expand the business into new areas like space logistics or autonomous vehicle coordination." His enthusiasm for potentially joining the family business represented validation that the sacrifices and challenges of the previous 2 years had created something genuinely valuable for our future. The company I had built from the devastation of Marcus's betrayal could provide opportunities for Ethan that extended far beyond financial security to include meaningful work in an industry that would continue growing and evolving throughout his career. That evening, as I reviewed financial reports in my suite at the Four Seasons Scottsdale, I received an unexpected phone call from Rebecca, Marcus's former affair partner who had relocated to San Francisco. Her call provided additional context for Marcus's circumstances and a different perspective on the consequences of his choices. "Sarah, I hope you don't mind me contacting you," Rebecca began, her voice carrying obvious discomfort about the conversation. "I heard through mutual acquaintances about your incredible success with Martinez Transportation Group, and I wanted to apologize for my role in what happened to your marriage." Her explanation revealed that Marcus had significantly misrepresented both his financial situation and his commitment to building a life with her in Phoenix. She had discovered that he had been simultaneously pursuing relationships with multiple women while claiming to be devoted to their partnership, a pattern of deception that mirrored his behavior during our marriage. I realized after several months that Marcus had serious character issues that extended far beyond his treatment of you, Rebecca explained. His willingness to lie about fundamental aspects of his life made it impossible to build any kind of genuine relationship with him. I finally understood that if he could systematically deceive his wife and abandon his child, he would eventually do the same thing to me. Her insights provided confirmation that Marcus's betrayal of our marriage had been consistent with deeper character flaws rather than simply a temporary lapse in judgment or commitment. The sophisticated deception and manipulation that had devastated our family relationship had apparently been repeated in his subsequent relationships, suggesting that his behavior was part of an established pattern rather than an isolated incident. More significantly, Rebecca's call provided evidence that Marcus's Phoenix relocation had not led to the personal fulfillment or professional advancement that had supposedly justified his abandonment of our family. His current circumstances appeared to be significantly less prosperous and stable than the life he had destroyed when he chose to pursue his affair. The conversation with Rebecca concluded with her expression of admiration for the transformation I had achieved following Marcus's betrayal. Her recognition that my success had far exceeded anything Marcus could have provided reinforced my understanding that his abandonment had ultimately been a gift that enabled achievements I might never have pursued within the limitations of our marriage. As I concluded my business activities in Phoenix and prepared to return to Denver aboard the company jet, I realized that the encounter with Marcus at the DMV had provided the perfect symbolic conclusion to the transformation that began with his betrayal. The visual impact of my arrival in a private jet at the exact location where he had abandoned me represented a reversal of circumstances so complete that it seemed almost fictional. However, the real satisfaction came not from Marcus's recognition of his mistakes, but from the knowledge that I had built something genuinely valuable that would continue growing and creating opportunities long after the emotional wounds of his betrayal had completely healed. Martinez Transportation Group was positioned to become one of the dominant forces in North American logistics, with international expansion possibilities that could eventually establish us as a global leader in transportation optimization. The foundation I had created for supporting other women entrepreneurs was generating measurable improvements in female participation and success rates in logistics and related industries. Most importantly, I had demonstrated to myself and to Ethan that extraordinary success was possible regardless of the obstacles or betrayals that others might create. The strength, analytical capability, and determination that had emerged from the darkest period of my life had become the foundation for achievements that exceeded my most ambitious dreams during the comfortable but limiting years of my marriage to Marcus. The woman who had been abandoned at a government office with her toddler had returned as a business leader whose success story would inspire countless others facing their own challenges and transformations. The following months brought developments that would cement Martinez Transportation Group's position as an industry innovator, while creating opportunities that extended far beyond traditional logistics consulting. Our research and development team, led by Dr. Angela Foster, had been working on revolutionary applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning to freight optimization challenges that could transform the entire transportation sector. The breakthrough came when we successfully developed predictive algorithms that could anticipate supply chain disruptions up to 6 weeks in advance, enabling clients to implement preemptive routing adjustments that minimized delays and reduced costs by an average of 23%. This technology represented a quantum leap forward in logistics planning capability, positioning Martinez Transportation Group at the forefront of industry innovation. Major technology companies immediately recognized the commercial potential of our predictive systems. Microsoft approached us with a licensing proposal worth $150 million for incorporating our algorithms into their Azure cloud platform, while Amazon offered $200 million for exclusive rights to use our technology for their fulfillment network optimization. Rather than selling our technological assets, I made the strategic decision to establish Martinez AI Systems as an independent subsidiary that could license our innovations to multiple clients while maintaining competitive advantages for our consulting operations. The artificial intelligence subsidiary attracted venture capital investment that valued the technology division at $400 million, bringing additional resources for expanding our research capabilities while preserving our ownership of revolutionary advances that could generate licensing revenue for decades. The combination of our consulting practice, logistics operations, and proprietary technology had created a diversified business empire worth over $750 million within 3 years of Marcus's abandonment. These technological innovations caught the attention of government agencies responsible for national transportation infrastructure planning. The Department of Transportation invited Martinez Transportation Group to participate in a $2.8 billion initiative for optimizing freight movement across interstate highway systems, potentially reducing fuel consumption by 15% while improving delivery reliability for essential goods and emergency supplies. The federal contract represented both an enormous business opportunity and a chance to contribute meaningfully to national economic efficiency and environmental sustainability. Our team's analysis revealed that systematic optimization of interstate freight routing could save American businesses over $40 billion annually, while reducing transportation-related carbon emissions by approximately 12%. Working with government agencies also provided opportunities to influence policy development related to autonomous vehicle integration, infrastructure investment priorities, and regulatory frameworks for emerging transportation technologies. My testimony before congressional committees on logistics modernization and supply chain security established Martinez Transportation Group as a thought leader, whose recommendations were shaping national transportation strategy. The policy influence extended to international trade negotiations, where our expertise in cross-border freight optimization helped government negotiators understand the economic implications of various trade agreement provisions. The consulting work with federal agencies generated additional revenue while positioning our company as an essential resource for strategic transportation planning at the highest levels of government. These high-profile government contracts attracted attention from international clients seeking similar optimization expertise for their national transportation systems. The European Union commissioned Martinez Transportation Group to analyze freight movement efficiency across member countries, identifying opportunities for reducing costs and environmental impact through coordinated logistics planning. The European project required establishing Martinez International, our fourth subsidiary, with offices in Brussels, Frankfurt, and Amsterdam. The international expansion created employment for 85 additional specialists while generating consulting revenue that exceeded $60 million during the first year of operations. Success in European markets led to similar opportunities in Asia, where rapid economic growth was creating enormous demand for transportation optimization expertise. The Asian expansion proved particularly lucrative, as emerging economies were building new transportation infrastructure and needed guidance for incorporating advanced logistics technologies from the beginning, rather than retrofitting existing systems. Our consulting work in Southeast Asia and India generated over $120 million in revenue while establishing long-term partnerships that could support business development for many years. The global expansion of Martinez Transportation Group had created opportunities for strategic partnerships with multinational corporations seeking comprehensive logistics solutions for their worldwide operations. Boeing engaged our services for optimizing their supply chain management across manufacturing facilities in 12 countries, while General Motors contracted with us for coordinating parts distribution throughout their North American assembly plants. These Fortune 500 relationships provided recurring consulting revenue while demonstrating our capability to manage logistics challenges at unprecedented scale and complexity. The successful completion of projects for industry-leading manufacturers generated referrals that kept our business development pipeline filled with high-value opportunities from companies seeking proven expertise for critical operational improvements. The scale of our international operations required sophisticated management systems and organizational structures that could coordinate complex projects across multiple time zones and regulatory environments. I recruited Dr. Michael Chen, former head of logistics strategy for FedEx Asia Pacific, to serve as president of international operations, while promoting Jennifer Davis to Chief Operating Officer responsible for North American business coordination. The executive team expansion enabled me to focus on strategic planning and business development, while ensuring that daily operations maintained the quality standards and client service excellence that had built our reputation. The management structure we developed became a model for other rapidly growing consulting firms seeking to scale their operations without compromising service quality. Our success attracted increasing attention from business schools and industry organizations interested in understanding the strategic principles and management practices that had enabled such rapid growth. Harvard Business School invited me to participate in a case study development project examining how Martinez Transportation Group had achieved market leadership in multiple sectors within such a short time frame. The Harvard case study became required reading in MBA programs throughout North America, providing additional validation of our strategic approach while enhancing my reputation as a business leader whose methodologies could be studied and adapted by other entrepreneurs. Speaking engagements at business schools generated consulting opportunities from their corporate partners while inspiring students who were developing their own entrepreneurial ambitions. The academic recognition led to appointment as a visiting professor at Colorado State University, where I taught graduate courses in strategic logistics management and entrepreneurial business development. The teaching opportunity provided personal satisfaction while connecting me with emerging talent that could potentially join Martinez Transportation Group as our continued expansion created demand for additional specialized expertise. The university relationship also facilitated research collaborations that advanced our technological development while providing students with real-world project experience. Graduate student teams working on Martinez-sponsored research projects had contributed to several patent applications for logistics optimization methodologies that could generate additional licensing revenue while strengthening our competitive advantages. During this period of extraordinary business growth, I maintained an unwavering focus on providing Ethan with opportunities and experiences that would prepare him for whatever career path he chose to pursue. His academic excellence had earned admission to Stanford University's early admission program, where he would begin studying industrial engineering and computer science at age 16. Ethan's intellectual capabilities and maturity had been enhanced by witnessing the systematic approach I had taken to building Martinez Transportation Group from initial concept to international corporation. His understanding of strategic planning, analytical problem-solving, and persistent effort had been developed through direct observation of business principles being applied successfully in competitive environments. The financial security that our business success had created enabled Ethan to pursue his educational interests without concerns about student debt or family financial pressure. More importantly, he had learned that extraordinary achievements were possible through strategic thinking and determined effort, regardless of the obstacles or setbacks that might occur. His decision to study industrial engineering reflected both his natural analytical abilities and his growing interest in potentially joining Martinez Transportation Group after completing his education. However, I had made it clear that his career choices should be based on his own interests and capabilities rather than family business expectations, ensuring that he would have complete freedom to pursue whatever path would provide him with the greatest satisfaction and success. The transformation that had begun with Marcus's abandonment at the Phoenix DMV had created opportunities and achievements that exceeded every dream I had ever entertained during our marriage. The systematic betrayal that had seemed like devastating destruction had actually provided the catalyst for building something far more valuable than anything we could have accomplished together. The logistics empire that emerged from the ruins of our relationship had generated wealth exceeding $50 million in personal assets while creating employment for over 800 people worldwide. The foundation supporting women entrepreneurs had facilitated the creation of 47 successful businesses generating combined annual revenue of over $200 million while providing education and mentorship for hundreds of aspiring business leaders. Most significantly, the experience had revealed capabilities within myself that might never have been discovered within the comfortable but limiting framework of dependence on Marcus's income and support. The necessity of building independent success had forced me to develop leadership skills, strategic thinking abilities, and emotional resilience that became the foundation for achievements that transformed both our family's circumstances and my understanding of what was possible. The encounter with Marcus at the DMV, 2 years after his abandonment, had provided the perfect symbolic conclusion to a transformation that continued generating new opportunities and possibilities. The private jet arrival at the location where he had left me represented not just personal vindication, but evidence that betrayal and abandonment could be transformed into the raw materials for building extraordinary success. As Martinez Transportation Group continued expanding into new markets and developing innovative technologies, I often reflected on the strategic principles and mindset shifts that had enabled such remarkable transformation, the analytical skills that uncovered Marcus's deception, the determination that sustained me through the darkest periods of rebuilding, and the strategic thinking that identified business opportunities had all emerged from the necessity of creating independent success after his betrayal. The woman who had stood in that DMV office holding her toddler while watching her husband disappear into an Uber with his affair partner had discovered strengths and capabilities that exceeded anything she had previously imagined possible. The devastation that seemed like the end of everything had actually been the beginning of achievements that would inspire countless others facing their own challenges and transformations. 5 years after Marcus's abandonment, Martinez Transportation Group had evolved into a multinational corporation with operations spanning 6 continents and annual revenue exceeding $1.2 billion. The company's success had attracted acquisition interest from some of the world's largest logistics corporations, with offers reaching as high as $3.8 billion for complete ownership of our integrated technology and consulting platform. However, rather than selling the empire I had built from nothing, I made the strategic decision to take Martinez Transportation Group public through an initial public offering that would provide capital for accelerated expansion while maintaining controlling interest in the company's strategic direction. The IPO process revealed that investment banks valued our comprehensive logistics platform at over $5 billion, making it one of the most successful public offerings in the transportation sector's history. The public market debut generated enormous media attention, with Forbes featuring me on their cover as the Phoenix Rising, How One Woman's Betrayal Became a Billion-Dollar Empire. The article detailed the transformation from abandoned wife to Fortune 500 CEO, inspiring millions of readers while demonstrating that extraordinary success could emerge from the most devastating personal setbacks. The media coverage attracted attention from Hollywood producers interested in developing a biographical film about my journey from the DMV abandonment to corporate leadership. While I declined most entertainment industry proposals, I did agree to serve as executive producer for a documentary series focusing on women entrepreneurs who had transformed personal adversity into business success, using my story as the central narrative while highlighting dozens of other inspiring transformations. The documentary project, titled Rising from Ruin: Women Who Built Empires from Ashes, premiered on Netflix to critical acclaim and generated over 50 million views during its first month. The series inspired countless women facing their own challenges while establishing me as a global advocate for female entrepreneurship and economic empowerment. The platform provided by the documentary series led to opportunities for addressing the United Nations Global Compact on women's economic participation, where I presented research demonstrating how supporting female-led businesses could generate trillions of dollars in global economic growth while reducing poverty and inequality in developing nations. The UN presentation resulted in appointment as a special advisor on women's entrepreneurship, providing opportunities to influence international development policies while expanding Martinez Transportation Group's consulting operations into emerging markets where infrastructure development was creating enormous demand for logistics expertise. Our work in emerging markets proved both financially rewarding and personally fulfilling, as we helped developing nations build efficient transportation networks that could support economic growth while creating employment opportunities for millions of people. The consulting projects in Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia generated over $300 million in additional revenue while establishing Martinez Transportation Group as a leader in sustainable development logistics. The international development work also created opportunities for strategic partnerships with organizations like the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, which relied on our expertise for evaluating the economic impact of transportation infrastructure investments. These relationships positioned Martinez Transportation Group as an essential resource for major development projects worldwide, generating recurring consulting revenue while contributing to global economic progress. The success of our international operations required establishing regional headquarters in São Paulo, Johannesburg, Singapore, and Mumbai, each staffed with local experts who understood regional regulatory environments and cultural considerations that affected logistics planning. The global expansion created employment for over 2,000 additional professionals while generating annual revenue that exceeded $400 million from international markets alone. The scale of our worldwide operations attracted attention from sovereign wealth funds and pension systems seeking stable, high-growth investments for their long-term portfolios. The Norwegian Government Pension Fund and Singapore's Temasek Holdings both made substantial equity investments that valued Martinez Transportation Group at over $8 billion while providing additional capital for technological development and market expansion. The institutional investment enabled us to accelerate development of revolutionary transportation technologies that could transform global freight movement. Our research team, now including over 200 scientists and engineers, was developing autonomous freight coordination systems that could reduce shipping costs by up to 40% while eliminating human error from complex logistics planning processes. The Autonomous Systems project attracted partnerships with major technology companies including Tesla, Google, and Alibaba, who recognized that our logistics optimization expertise was essential for implementing their own autonomous vehicle and artificial intelligence initiatives. These technology partnerships generated licensing revenue exceeding $200 million annually, while positioning Martinez Transportation Group at the center of the transportation industry's technological transformation. The convergence of artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, and predictive analytics was creating opportunities for Martinez Transportation Group to become the dominant platform for coordinating global freight movement in the emerging digital economy. Our technological capabilities, combined with established relationships throughout the logistics industry, positioned us to capture enormous market share as traditional transportation methods were replaced by automated systems. The business success had also created opportunities for significant philanthropic impact through the expansion of the Martinez Foundation's mission beyond women's entrepreneurship to include comprehensive educational initiatives. We established the Martinez Institute for Transportation Innovation at Colorado State University, providing scholarships, research funding, and internship opportunities for students pursuing careers in logistics, engineering, and sustainable transportation. The Institute's research programs were developing solutions for reducing the environmental impact of global freight movement while improving efficiency and reducing costs. Student teams working on Martinez-sponsored projects had contributed to breakthrough discoveries in electric vehicle battery technology, renewable energy integration for transportation systems, and biodegradable packaging materials that could revolutionize sustainable logistics. The educational initiatives extended to K-12 programs that introduced young students to STEM concepts through transportation and logistics challenges. The Martinez Mobile Learning Labs, custom-designed vehicles equipped with advanced technology demonstrations, visited schools throughout North America to inspire students from underserved communities to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These educational outreach programs had reached over 100,000 students annually, with follow-up studies indicating that participants were 40% more likely to pursue STEM education and careers, compared to control groups. The measurable impact on educational outcomes provided evidence that corporate success could be leveraged for creating positive social change while inspiring the next generation of innovators and entrepreneurs. The combination of business success and philanthropic impact had earned recognition from numerous organizations, including selection as Time magazine's Person of the Year for transforming personal adversity into global economic impact while inspiring millions of women to pursue entrepreneurial success. The recognition provided additional platforms for advocating policy changes that could support female entrepreneurship and economic development worldwide. During this period of extraordinary professional achievement, Ethan had completed his undergraduate studies at Stanford with highest honors and was beginning graduate research in artificial intelligence applications for transportation systems. His academic work was directly relevant to Martinez Transportation Group's technological development priorities, creating opportunities for meaningful collaboration between his research and our commercial applications. Ethan's intellectual development had been profoundly influenced by witnessing the systematic approach I had taken to building a global corporation from the devastation of Marcus's betrayal. His understanding of strategic planning, resilience under pressure, and the importance of ethical leadership had been shaped by observing these principles applied successfully in the most challenging business environments. His decision to focus his graduate research on autonomous vehicle coordination reflected both his natural analytical abilities and his growing interest in contributing to technological innovations that could improve global transportation efficiency. The research he was conducting had potential applications for Martinez Transportation Group's autonomous systems development, creating possibilities for family collaboration on projects that could transform the transportation industry. The prospect of working with Ethan on revolutionary transportation technologies represented a continuation of the transformation that began with Marcus's abandonment, demonstrating how devastating betrayal could become the foundation for achievements that benefited not only our family, but millions of people worldwide through improved transportation systems and economic opportunities. Meanwhile, Marcus's circumstances in Phoenix had continued deteriorating as the consequences of his character flaws and poor decision-making accumulated over time. Former colleagues reported that his reputation for unreliability and dishonesty had limited his career advancement opportunities, while his pattern of deceptive behavior in personal relationships had left him isolated and without meaningful social connections. His attempts to reconnect with mutual friends from our marriage had been unsuccessful, as most people who knew about his systematic betrayal and abandonment of our family were unwilling to maintain relationships with someone who had demonstrated such fundamental character defects. The comfortable social network he had enjoyed during our marriage had been replaced by isolation and recognition that his choices had created irreparable damage to his reputation and relationships. More significantly, Marcus's professional prospects had been limited by the rapid evolution of the consulting industry towards specialized expertise and technological innovation. His traditional MBA approach to business strategy had become increasingly obsolete as companies sought consultants with deep technical knowledge and proven track records of delivering measurable results in competitive markets. The contrast between his declining circumstances and my extraordinary success had become impossible for him to ignore, particularly given the extensive media coverage of Martinez Transportation Group's achievements and my recognition as one of the most successful entrepreneurs of my generation. Former McKinsey colleagues who had witnessed his abandonment of our family were now working as clients or partners with my company, creating constant reminders of the opportunities he had forfeited through his betrayal. The irony that his former wife had become one of the most influential figures in the logistics industry, while he struggled with diminished career prospects and personal isolation, represented a reversal of circumstances so complete that it seemed almost poetic. The man who had believed he was reducing me to helpless dependence had inadvertently provided the catalyst for achievements that far exceeded anything he could accomplish independently. The transformation that began with his cruel abandonment at the Phoenix DMV had culminated in my recognition as a global leader whose influence extended from corporate boardrooms to international development organizations, while his choices had led to professional stagnation and personal isolation that reflected the true consequences of his character and values. As I prepared for the next phase of Martinez Transportation Group's expansion into space-based logistics coordination and interplanetary freight systems, I often reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought me from that devastating moment of abandonment to a position of unprecedented influence and success. The analytical skills, emotional resilience, and strategic thinking that emerged from the necessity of rebuilding my life had become the foundation for achievements that were transforming global transportation while inspiring millions of people facing their own challenges. The woman who had been left standing in a government office with her toddler and $23 in her wallet had become the architect of transportation systems that would serve humanity's expansion beyond Earth, demonstrating that no betrayal or abandonment could limit the potential of someone determined to transform adversity into extraordinary achievement. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.